paragraphs that are posted in the book, I did mention a good leader should be able to produce above average results
Mm.
from below average people. See,
I see. I see. Okay.
I hope
Okay.
you understand what I'm saying. You
Yes.
don't
Yes.
need talented people to produce good results, right? If you're a good leader, okay,
Oh,
you don't need a disciplined culture as a starting point. You can start with any baseline. If you're a good leader, you can transform people.
Welcome and good day. This is season 17 of The Leader's Edge. We're on episode 3. And today we're extremely fortunate. We have Professor Rene Domingo with us. He is an extremely well exposed person. If I were to read you everything he's done, he's an international consultant, author, professor, lecturer in the fields of quality management, lean system management, productivity management. He is an industrial engineer graduate, magna cum laude, with more than 20 years of consulting and training experience. He's Japan educated in management engineering with intensive hands-on training and experience in the Toyota production system in Japan. Rene is also an adjunct faculty at the Asian Institute of Management. As we all know, that's Asia's premier graduate school of business. He's a consultant with the World Health Organization on hospital management and systems. And most of all, he's an author. That's what brings him here today. He's the author of Quality Means Survival, a guide on total quality management published by Prentice Hall. It's the Customer, Your Real Boss, a book on world-class banking customer services. Turnaround Management, Best Practices from the Indonesian Experience, in which he's a co-author. And What is a World-Class Factory? A definitive article on world-class manufacturing. Today, he's bringing us the cheat sheet to beat our competition. That's what the book we'll be talking about today. Over to you, Rene. If there's something I missed with my introduction, please, now's the time to mention it. And we can also start talking about your book. Rene?
Well, thank you, Paul and Dina. Well, thank you also for helping me, promote the book. It's fresh from the printing press,
yeah.
and I'm just as excited as you are in sharing these thoughts, this with our people in business, entrepreneurs. Well, I I would call myself a teacher, a researcher, a consultant. At the same time. But these are not three different jobs. What I teach, I use in consulting. When I consult, I do that. I use it for research. So all my writings, including this book, is already a combination of my insights from teaching, research, and consulting. So this is my contribution to, should you say, legacy. And a lot of my research are used in my teaching and in my consulting. So these three professions really feed on each other. So the book and the other books I've written are really a consolidation of these ideas to help businesses and entrepreneurs move forward and improve their performance. Okay?
Mm.
They may or may not be my students or my clients. I'm sharing this with the public in general, even outside the country. Right?
Mm.
Other Asian businesses, especially those who suffered during COVID, right? They can benefit from this research.
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
Right.
Professor, to start with, I'm really curious because you've been in Japan, you studied also in Japan, and of course the culture is different. So, what for you is the what part of the Japanese culture that makes them so resilient and in spite of all the difficulties also they had in the past, the past World War, of course, and yet here they are one of the best economies in the world. What is the secret of Japan?
Well, in my book, including the previous ones, though I don't call it Japanese management, I really don't call it Japanese management. This is Japanese. This is what I call management practices, good management
Okay,
practices
okay,
that any country can adopt. Because I've
okay.
been in Japan, and there's nothing Japanese in what they do. Okay, for
Oh,
example,
okay.
attention to detail, right? Uh,
Mm,
perfection, aiming for perfection, okay? Continuous improvement. These are the secrets. It's not working hard. Of course, they work hard, but they work hard for a purpose. They perfect everything. You've been to Japan. You know how they things, how they prepare dishes. They're really perfectionists. They keep improving. They will not settle for mediocrity, no, or something average. Okay, and they're very customer centric. They try to please the customer, the buyer, the purchaser, not the employee, not management, not the investor. It's always the employee, always the customer. Right?
Oh,
Always the
that
customer.
is significant, Professor. That one, you said it. That is so significant because there are some. I have no idea, but maybe because you have been researching, I do not know what the percentages are, but there are really some businesses here that are out to make profit, but they are not as concerned about the customer experience.
Correct, correct,
I
correct.
can tell. Yes, yes,
That's covered
recently,
in my book.
yes.
That's covered in my book. Yes, Paul.
yes.
Well, recently, and this is historical, I think sometime in the 80s, the concept of shareholder value took hold. This was in the West, and it dominated practically everything. Even the education systems in the West are very shareholder value oriented. So pretty much that's what it boiled down to. Recent episodes with Boeing is an example of that. They just got too involved with, how would you say, paying off the shareholders. Okay, then things suddenly went wrong. Okay, but that was also partially driven by that. Now, I've never had the good fortune of being to Japan ever, but I did watch several documentaries about their primary education, which is really value driven. Okay, it teaches the value of respect for the other person. It teaches the value of discipline, like cleaning up after work and things like that. And that's driven in the early stages of education. It's not like who's got the latest cell phone, or they're all stuck looking at their cell phone. It's not that. So I think that's also a big contributor to the. It's very foundational. That's why.
I also noticed, Professor, thanks a lot, Paul. I also noticed, Professor, that you also had some years in Indonesia.
Oh yes, yes. We do a lot of programs in Indonesia, and we have so many partners there. That's the reason my other book was about turnaround management of Indonesian companies, because they a lot of their companies survived the Asian crisis, not the COVID crisis. Okay, so I documented with my co-author what were these best practice. Okay, and again, there's nothing Indonesian in those practices. These are what I call good management practices, like resiliency, repurposing your business, reimagining your business. This is what we need to overcome any crisis, COVID or financial crisis. So this is how I write things. I don't look at the country or nationality. Any best practice. Okay.
Okay.
I document it, and so that it becomes replicable, adaptable. Just like in the book, my new book, right? These are best practices from different countries, coming from my different clients, from my research. So
Indeed.
it's supposed to be applied to Asian, non-Asian, Western. There's nothing Filipino or Japanese in that book. Okay?
Indeed.
It's
So
all about good management practices.
I'm so happy that you found time to put all of your researches together and all the other materials you have to create this book, because I'm enjoying reading it so much. And in some
Thank you.
honestly, in some instances, I go back because I said, "Oh, wait, that was
Yeah.
not." So I go back, and that's the reason why you can tell I have a bookmark just to make sure where was the last page, etc. So I
Well,
yeah.
that's exactly how I wrote the book. You can start anywhere. It's like a buffet table, as I
That's
wrote
it.
it in the preface.
And that's what makes it for me, very practical and very easy. I can
Yes, so
I can go to any page.
exactly. That is on purpose. That's on purpose. That's
Oh,
part of the design of the book. Okay. You make it easy to read, easy to
Yeah.
consume,
Yeah.
not time consuming. You take your time, but learn
Yes.
fast
Yes.
and learn fast. So this is how what I think businesses need to compete,
Yes.
to survive.
Yes. Yes.
Quick learning,
Mm,
agility, fast learning,
mm,
fast unlearning. We
mhm.
don't have the time to read novel like or
Yes.
PhD thesis like,
Exactly. Exactly.
documents to absorb
Uh-uh.
some lesson. It's a quick
Pro-
takeaway, quick
Yeah.
implementation.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Professor
all
Rene,
many of these are
uh,
really validated principles. No need to
how
test.
much time do
This is
you give to research, Professor Rene? Because I believe that's also a big source of your secret of success because of the time you put to research.
research is not really for the purpose of research. I'm just curious. Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
curiosity should be the basis of research, not some goal of coming up with so many. I'm curious. What's going
Uh,
on? Let me try to understand this phenomena. So I read about best practices from any source: newspaper,
okay.
website, Facebook. It doesn't matter. My clients, my students. That is my the whole world is my laboratory. It's not some library in some school.
Uh,
Okay,
uh, I
that's my lab. Okay,
I want to thank you, Professor, because this early, I want to thank you in advance because I really appreciate your letting me know in advance that we can have a series of interviews because this book of yours cannot be covered in just one interview. There's just
cannot because
uh,
I covered a lot of topics like efficiency, entrepreneurship, cost reduction, innovation, even governance and environment. Would you
yes,
believe? Because these are all subject to amenable to good management practices, whatever the topic is, right? And these are not unrelated to even strategy, even how to work
mm,
successfully, how to keep your job, how to find a job. Would you
yes,
believe that? That's my last topic, working,
uh,
how to find a
yeah,
job, okay? How to
yes,
get hired, okay? Or how
okay,
to spot talent if you're the one hiring.
yes.
Okay.
So yeah, Paul. So you can shoot a question to Professor Rene now. Yes, yes,
Dana, you've already covered
Anything.
quite a lot.
yeah.
Okay, but maybe Renee can fill in a little bit of some of the things that maybe he wants to talk more about, like maybe his journey in actually writing the book, because you've
Okay,
already wrote several.
yes,
Can you
yes,
tell us a little bit more about the journey of you actually coming up with this book?
yeah, yeah.
Great. That's a great question. In fact, I'm also wondering how to answer that question because frankly, I never intended to write this book.
Mm,
There was no plan. You see, it started during the pandemic or right before the pandemic, 2019, where everybody's trying to panic, right? What's going to happen when we lock down? And sure enough, we had the lockdown, right? Everything froze at that time. So people were worried. How do I survive? How do I keep my job? How do I keep my business? I started to uploading some posts on Facebook, LinkedIn, very informal, how to give suggestions on how to cope with the crisis.
mm,
Little paragraphs until 2 or 3 years later, it became so intense, right? I had to formalize. I came up with my Facebook page,
mm,
my LinkedIn page to help the small businesses cope with the crisis. Okay, because nobody's helping them.
mm,
The big companies can help themselves because they're deep pocketed, but not the small and medium. So
mhm,
a lot of these ideas came from that original motivation to help the SMEs cope with the crisis. Then post-crisis, 2023, 2024, I continue writing to help those who want to be stronger to prepare for the next crisis. Okay? So
mhm.
it's a continuation. So until I realized I have enough material for a book. That's 2024. so so quickly in 6 months, even though I was writing for 4 years, okay, it took me 6 months to organize all these thoughts into topics, fill it up with other materials. It becomes more like a book. Okay,
Mm,
that's why you
mm,
can see a diversity of topics from innovation, technology, and eh, people management, even leadership. Okay,
mm, mm,
even how to hire people. So that's the background of this
mm,
project, right? I never really intended to write it, but a lot of my followers told me, when are you gonna write a book about this? Because they want my post. Everybody's a lot of my followers are printing all these little posts and posting it on their walls and making it agenda in their mancom, you know. But there is no one area where they can get all this posts, because it's you know how social media operates. Huh? You pile it up, and then it's hard to search any topic. Now it's in the book. It's a lot easier to
Right.
in terms of
I,
referencing.
I took
Right.
note of something that you said earlier, Professor Rene, that you don't really credit only the culture. You said no, it's not just the culture. It's people who really probably it's the discipline, but it's just that. Don't you think that there are particular cultures that are more prone to, or rather more disciplined than other cultures?
Well, I'm the optimistic person, right?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
Okay.
more optimistic because this is where leadership and management comes in.
Okay.
In one of my uh, paragraphs there post in the book, I did mention a good leader should be able to produce above average results
Mm,
from below average people. See,
I see. I see. Okay.
I hope
Okay.
you understand what I'm saying. You
Yes.
don't
Yes.
need talented people to produce good results, right? If you're a good leader, okay,
Oh.
you don't need a disciplined culture as a starting point. You can start
Oh.
with any baseline. If you're a good leader, you can transform people. This
Oh.
is where leadership comes in. It's not, yeah, you're given a handicap and then you do well or not. It's nothing to do with that. No? You're
Oh.
given what you have, the culture that you have, the
Okay.
location that you have. So what
Yeah.
do you make do? You're supposed to be resourceful, creative as a leader. No? Okay.
Mm,
What do you do next? You're given below average people. What do you do? Huh? But your goal is to produce products and services that are high quality. Okay,
oh.
with
Okay.
these kinds of people. What do you do now? Okay, the Japanese were all farmers. They were not industrialized. Europe
Mm,
was industrial ahead of Japan. Japan was a closed country. They were all fishermen and farmers. They were samurai. There were no factory workers there. So they
mm,
had to start with that baseline. They have mountains. They're worse off than Philippines. Okay, they have nothing there. They're all mountains. Okay, yet they
mm.
have people, right? And they have
You know,
resilience. So
uh, I
that's a management paradigm.
Okay. Okay.
actually, what you're saying is it's something that I've been thinking of a lot. Okay, and actually, I ran into it also on LinkedIn. There's a gentleman by the name of Daniel Eds, and he was comparing it to the American military, because the American military can take an uneducated person and put him
Mm,
into a multi-billion-dollar system that's complicated and make it work.
mm,
and and he said the trick there is they don't see leadership as individuals. Leadership is the system. It's the process.
Yeah,
Okay, it's not something that I'll just put a whole bunch of people say, hey guys, let's teach you how to be leaders. No, it's the process itself.
correct. Yeah.
So it's separated just by a little bit. And when I read it, I said this makes a whole lot of sense. Okay.
Exactly. So
And
you can have these disadvantages because of culture, but that should not stop you from
right,
achieving excellence
right.
in what you do. Right?
mm, mm,
We
It's
have
not
pockets of excellence in many countries, even in Africa, even in Eastern Europe, even in the Middle East. We have pockets of excellence. You don't have to be in Western Europe or in the US to be
mhm,
excellent, right?
uh-uh.
right,
I'm
right.
curious about one thing, Professor Rene. Because you mentioned you help Indonesian companies, uh, make their companies from losing companies, made a turn around. So how was that done?
Well, actually, Dina, it was not really helping. I just documented their best practice. That is my
Oh,
contribution.
oh,
Because nobody wrote about this. They just survived, they tried, but it's gonna be a waste if nobody documented the lessons learned. Right? So that
oh,
that is my purpose in as a researcher. Okay? I,
I
I I document their best practice, make sure it can be adopted by other companies, other countries. So you multiply. you multiply the benefits of those new practices. And
Oh,
I think the Indonesian, including Thai and Singaporean, they have all these experiences,
okay.
and that is my journey, right? How do we
Mm,
capture all this, consolidate all these best practices, and these are mostly in my book, current book, so that other companies can benefit. Large companies, big companies, different industries, whether in the manufacturing or even in government. That's what I'm talking about. That to me is my contribution to this management practice. Okay? Okay. Though I do consulting, I coach people how to do it, how not to do it, but I'm also excited about documenting it, writing it in such a form, as you said, easy to digest, easy to read, easy to consume, right? It
mm.
challenges people to think differently, how to manage people, how to manage their customers. So a lot of paradigm shift. I think the book will raise more questions than give answers.
No,
That's my purpose. Yeah,
I enjoyed the fact that I can jump from one to the one page to the other.
exactly.
Well,
It's the general idea.
oh, oh, oh,
It's we call it a mining. You can mine it for whatever it's worth, right?
right.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
And
an interesting observation that I had, let's say you and I are having a conversation. If you raise an idea and I have an idea, when we're thinking about it correctly, we actually wind up with four ideas. Why?
yeah,
Because I'm going to see the way you see your idea, which is going to be different. You're going to see the way I see my idea, which is also going to be different. Okay, then
correct,
just
correct, correct.
so you
That
wind up with
that's what
a lot of ideas.
that's what I'm talking about. In fact, when I was in Japan, fortunately, I chose to study there. I was so shocked. Culture shock to me is not about eating raw fish or reading from left right to left. Nothing of that sort. Right? It's really the way they think about management is so different and so correct. For example, we're so interested in cutting costs, and this is my first chapter in the book.
Mm-mm.
When you say cut costs, people mean cut heads, right? Or cut training,
Cut
cut
training.
advertising,
Yeah.
cut napkins, cut refreshments, all the superficial costs, right? It's all about downsizing in the Western world when you say cut costs. Right? But in
Mm-mm.
Japan, they cut costs, especially in Toyota, where I studied. To them, cut cost means what? Cut complexity, and cut wastefulness, cut
Oh,
inefficiency. You don't
oh,
have to cut heads to cut
I
costs.
see.
Eh?
Okay.
You discover the inefficiency. We call it muda or waste. And it's all in the book. Right? And this is the proper way to cut costs. You cut the drivers of cost, not the cost themselves. Hmm? And that to me is quite, there's nothing Japanese there. That's pure common sense. Why would you cut costs? You cut the drivers of cost. Right? Then you can cut the root cause of cost, not the cost itself. The cost reduction will follow. Right? For example,
Right.
you cut manpower. How can you cut manpower? Before you can cut manpower, you cut man hours.
Yes.
And to cut man hours, you cut process inefficiency because process inefficiency consume man hours. Okay?
Oh,
So
oh,
cut inefficiency, you cut man hours, you cut headcount. That's the
mm,
sequence. Rather than cut headcount first, then you don't even know what the process dynamics are all about. You don't know operations management. How can you cut heads? You will be
well,
cutting value. You'll be instead of cutting waste.
yeah.
One of everything you're saying, and this is also on a very personal basis.
Mm,
Organizations have to be really aware of who they are
yeah.
in order to pull this off.
Mm-mm.
Okay. As Dinah pointed out, I'm sure you've seen this so many times. You might see plastered on the wall. These are our values. These are our things. But yet, when it goes down, it's
Mm-mm.
not there. It gets
Mm-mm.
lost someplace.
Well,
Uh,
you're correct. You're
and
correct. I agree with
it,
you, Paul.
in fact, that we're talking about the performance appraisal systems. Okay, and I said that the difficulty with the performance appraisal system is the person responds to the performance appraisal, not necessarily the values of the organization. Okay. And if you're my boss, and I said, "Oh gosh, I've got to please Renee to make sure I get my increase." What do you think I'm going to do? You know what I mean? So
Well, I did mention that, Paul, in my book, that we have to connect all these goals. We call it strategy deployment. Deploy the
Right.
strategy, mission, vision to strategy, and then to KPI, key performance indicator,
Right.
and then to your PMS, performance management system.
Mhm.
Unless they're connected, then everybody on different pages singing different tune. You're
Mhm.
you're
Right.
rowing the boat different direction, so you don't move to the next level. Okay, your big system is not consistent with your small system. Meaning the strategy is not connected to the performance management system.
Right.
There's a disconnect. There's a
Right.
disconnect. That's
Mhm.
that is my explanation to what you're saying. And
Mhm.
how can you compete with the companies who are very agile, who are so connected, yeah, acting as one? Right? You cannot defeat these companies. Right? They're on the same page: mission, vision, strategy, values, PMS, KPI. They're on the same page.
Right.
What the rank and file is saying is what the president is saying, what the technicians is saying. Yeah? So that's competitiveness. There's no secret to that.
I used
Only
to
is it's so hard. It's so hard to do that. But, you know,
I used to ask, I said, just go to the boardroom, ask the president, what's the purpose of the organization? And he'll say something. Then go down to the lowest ranking guy and
it's
ask him what
different.
the purpose is. See how big the difference is. Okay.
You know,
But but the sad part of that is at the end of the day, it's what the lowest ranking guy is saying, not the
Mhm.
president.
correct.
Because he's the one actually doing all the production and everything. It's like,
But let me add to that, Paul. Move to the next level, and I think I will rephrase what I said earlier. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, the
Mhm.
reason you set up a business is not for employees, not even for employees, it's for the customers, the buyers. If you don't have a buyer, there's
Mhm.
no point opening a shop. Right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So what the customers are saying should be what the employees are saying, should be what the
yes.
board is saying. The customer is always right. This is the secret of Amazon, of Apple, of Google. They always listen, of Walmart or Ritz Carlton. Huh? What the customer wants should be above everything else. Policy, strategy. Huh? That and I have a chapter on that. Right? And this to me is common sense. How can you satisfy somebody else who's not paying you? The one who's paying you should be satisfied first.
Mhm.
Everything starts from sales, not
Mhm.
cost, not payroll, not
Mhm.
dividend. Everything sale. You don't have a sale, forget about your financial condition.
Right.
Everything starts with the top line. And top line starts with satisfied clients.
Mhm.
So to me, this is the disconnect, right? Everybody's setting up goals, and they forget about the most important stakeholder, who's buying our product. Who's gonna pay
Right.
your salaries? It's not
Right.
management. Paying salaries, not management. It's not even the stockholder. It's the customer coming from their purchases.
Mhm.
Right.
It's so simple. Huh? This is how to grow a business. If you're an entrepreneur, I keep telling that to my students in entrepreneurship. Never lose focus on the customer and their voices. Whether it's a complaint, a compliment, listen, listen, listen. Okay? It's a listening strategy. If you don't forget to listen, then you're off track, right? You'll be doing something unnecessary, doesn't add value, and you can't sell
Mm.
that,
Right.
unfortunately, even though you work hard to producing it. Okay?
Mhm.
So this is one of my key lessons here. The voice of the customer is the most important voice. Forget about your balance scorecard, your strategy, or this fancy framework. Then you forget about the clients. Yeah? You can even forget about training. Training for what? Even training is misaligned in many cases. Right?
Oh
Training
yes.
for what? Employees are happy, they have teamwork, they're so happy, but the customers are dissatisfied. How can you have teamwork like that? Hmm?
Mhm.
They don't connect teamwork to
Mhm.
customer satisfaction.
Mhm.
There's a disconnect between marketing goal and HR goal, or what you call OD, right?
Right.
Organizational development. Okay, so there should be a connect, a synergy. Huh? We never see HR that way, that it's connected to sales and marketing or to finance. They're always siloed, right? Siloed. I develop
Well,
people,
that's
bahala ka na. You just do your thing. Huh? Huh?
that's one
Everything
of the
becomes accidental.
that's one of those how would you say systems thinking
Yes, yes.
process. Okay, I'm part of a
System.
system. If I move one direction, I'll affect everybody.
You affect, you change the direction, right? You
Right,
change focus, but you never lose focus on the customer.
right.
But even with digital transformation, I have a big chapter on technology. You know, a lot of this technology bandwagon, digital, it's so misplaced, right? They digitize everything, even though it's unnecessary. Huh? It doesn't add value to the. In fact, some of this digital makes life complicated to the customers. Okay,
I agree.
and making it easy. Even instead of making it easy, you make it difficult. What kind of transformation is that? Again, you lose focus on the voice. The simpler, the better. The simpler the technology, the better. Don't make it complicated. You got customer experience. Isn't it,
Well,
Dina? What is
actually,
customer experience? The simplest, shortest experience is the best customer experience. Hmm? You don't have
actually,
to
what
make it wonderful, smiling,
right.
gorgeous. Forget about that. Just make it simple and short. That's the best experience.
The good thing about simplicity is when you come to think about it, the best functioning complex systems are all based on simple things done very well.
Simplicity.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's not just
Exactly. So why enhance it with automation, with bells and whistles, accessorize your service? What's the point? Hmm?
Yeah, yeah.
Make it simple because that's what the customer he wants to get your goods and services in the fastest possible way. Why
right.
make their lives easier? Get their money right away. They want to part with their money right away. Why make it difficult for them to pay you, to collect?
Mhm.
A lot of process inefficiency, which really doesn't make sense. Huh?
Right.
He wants to pay you, you want to sell to him, but the process are so inefficient, you don't accomplish both, right? Okay? You can accomplish both.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the reality of current. That's why we are so dissatisfied with many services. Right?
Yes, yes.
Right.
Even though we call it customer experience,
Mhm.
we're still not yet there. Right?
Maybe I should ask you because if you notice, our conversation has pretty much gone everywhere. Okay. Right.
Yeah, yeah, right.
What
Yeah.
was probably the biggest challenge you had putting this? Well, I would call it a hodgepodge of ideas into something that made sense and easy for us to read. What were some of the biggest challenges you're facing?
Mhm.
Well, actually, the challenges is not that people don't know.
Mhm.
They know a lot of things.
Mhm.
It's the unlearning that's the challenge. How do you break them out of their traditional paradigm? That's a challenge. Learning is easy, unlearning is difficult. And a lot of the things I wrote in this book is really about unlearning. Okay? Because so many years we have been educated, and education is about uploading, downloading. It's about acquisition of knowledge. It's not about unlearning. That's why we lost our curiosity, our sense of innovation when we graduate, right? We become conformists. We don't question policy. You join a company, you don't question the policy. You don't question what you encounter when you on your day one, right? Isn't it?
Right.
That's a new employee behavior.
Right.
Yes.
Accept everything that you see, yeah,
Yes.
just like in school.
Mhm.
Then you try to talk about innovation technology, but he's coming in from a different end. Huh?
Right.
He was trained to be a conformist, huh? Trying to apply what he learned. You don't teach him how to unload, huh? This thing. So that's a challenge, Paul. If you are to ask me, no,
Right.
how do you how do you sell this new paradigm when you have to unlearn first before you can have a buy-in?
Mhm.
You cannot have a buy-in unless you deload yourself of this old notion. Right? For example, let me give you my favorite. It's in the book. Huh? How do you price something? How do you price something?
Yes,
It's
yes.
very simple according to traditional thinking. It's cost
Mhm.
plus. Get
Mhm.
your cost at your profit, that becomes the price. It sounds logical. And we
Mhm.
have been trained to do this. Na? We have been trained to do this. All businesses, accounting practice has to do with cost plus. Recover your cost plus some profit. But that's not the way the market works. Customers don't care about your cost, they care about your profit. What do they care about? They care about their value for money. What's your price? I will relate it to the value I get from your product.
Mm.
If it's the right price, I'm gonna buy it. I don't care about how much money you make. That's why Apple, with their iPhone, make tons of money. Huh? Even though that the cost is very low, they make high because they're giving the value that the customer wants in a smartphone. Would you ever believe we're gonna buy a phone that's worth $1,200? That's the price of a laptop. But people are still buying a smartphone, okay, at that price. The cost of that smartphone probably $100. Okay, you look at the cost.
Mhm.
So this is the paradigm shift. No? It has to be value pricing. Okay, look at the customer, decide the price that he wants, and then work on your cost so you meet that price. You don't pass on your cost and inefficiency to your clients because they don't care about your cost. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
This is how to compete. We call it target costing. It's in one of the chapter in my book. Okay? Call it target costing. Customer oriented pricing, value pricing, not cost-based pricing.
Mm, mm.
And many more that we really have to unlearn, huh?
Right,
Unlearn
right. Yes,
to
yes.
compete.
Indeed.
Right.
Okay. Professor Rene, I don't know if you've heard about this already. I suppose you have because you do a lot of research. But one of our favorite speakers also from Vietnam revealed to us what is the secret of Vietnam, why it is now number one in Asia as far as the economy is concerned. And that is the way the Vietnamese government has puts together or organizes like a town hall or something where they invite the different businesses, give allot them certain days of the month where they meet together and they ask very simply, what do you need from us? What help can we give you to make you prosper, to make you succeed? And that's I was so dumbfounded by that because I wish that we will do that here. I mean, coming from a communist country and then doing that sort of thing, it was sounded revolutionary to me that it's a government who will ask you
But
what can we do.
Dina, it's not a secret. I'm not too familiar with the Vietnamese economy. I've been there many times, but you're
Uh,
correct. They're more organized, and again, this has nothing to do with being a Vietnamese or Singaporean.
uh,
By the way, the Singaporeans are more organized, right? They're more prosperous than the Vietnamese, for
yes.
that matter of being organized, of
Uh-huh.
consulting their stakeholders, the small business, the citizen. Okay, I think the better example would be Singapore, right? Because there's nothing there; they have no resources. How come they're the richest in ASEAN, right? That's even more mysterious. How can a small state like that, city
Mm,
state like that, could have the highest GNP per capita? No? Okay,
mm,
and they're not in the league, first world league. Right? To me,
mm,
that's really something to benchmark. Of course, Vietnam can also teach us several lessons. But again, take a look at the best practice. Consultation is one. Consult your stakeholders. Huh? Listen, listen, listen. Not only in strategy formulation, even in policy making or legislate making laws. No? Huh? When you legislate, you consult the stakeholders. If you lack this, the same problem will happen. You come up with policy, with law, with strategy that there's no buy-in. Once there's no buy-in, according to Paul, the rank and file will not execute. Huh? Nothing happens with your grand strategy, with your nice legislation. Nobody will follow. Huh? Huh? Because they're not co-owners of the plan. They have to be co-owners to have buy-in.
In
This is
fact,
something we lack. Co-ownership.
sorry to interrupt, but even the term buy-in is not accurate for me because buy-in means I'll create something and then try to sell it to Rene or try to
Exactly.
sell it to Dina. I said, Mali, I should just invite all the three of you. Let's talk about what we want to
Exactly.
do.
So
Okay.
it becomes superfluous, redundant, right? Because they were co-creators, co-designers,
Right.
co-authors of the plan, why should there be a buy-in? You're part of the
Exactly.
planning team,
Yeah.
of the design team. How can you have a buy-in or no buy-in? So it becomes it's not you versus them, right? I
Right.
versus me. It's one team. So this is the
Right.
lesson, Dina, whether it's China, Japan, or Vietnam, Singapore. If you have consultation during the early phase, we call it early phase, huh? Okay, of design, of planning, legislation, strategy. You can apply this to government, even to companies, right? Okay. Once you plan together, including those who will execute it, then things will go smoother. Right?
Mhm.
You don't have this what we call resistance to change. I find this topic so interesting. Why should there be resistance? You could avoid all this resistance. These are all avoidable in the first place.
Right.
This
Right. Right.
resistance to change. Why solve that? That should never be a problem in the first place.
Mhm. Mhm.
If you had planned together.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
actually, if you find that there is resistance, it's an opportunity for you to do it correctly.
Yeah, but that's after the fact.
Right.
I also had a subject matter in that book. The best solution is before the fact, not after the fact. You solve
Mhm.
the problem before it happens, not
Yeah.
after it happens.
Mhm.
Even if you solve it correctly, you still lost time.
Right.
Mhm.
You lose money by solving it
Mhm.
later. You
Mhm.
solve it earlier.
Mhm.
It's cheaper, right? It's cheaper. Okay? That's the way we define efficiency. Okay? Do less firefighting at the end. Do your problem solving during the planning phase, not the
Oh,
execution phase.
Right.
okay. Mhm.
That's very Japanese. I don't call it Japanese. They solve
Mhm.
problem during planning, not during execution.
You know,
Yeah.
it's unusual because when I talk about planning, okay, during the course, I say, look, when you compare something like effective and efficient, okay, first of all, don't compare them because they're two very different things. Okay, I
Oh
said
yeah, yeah.
effective is the planning. Efficiency is just execution of the effective.
Execution. Exactly, exactly. So how can you be efficient if you're not effective? Doesn't make sense. It's a
Right.
what I call misplaced efficiency. Huh? You're working hard doing the wrong things. You're not satisfying the customer.
Right.
Satisfying the customer is effectiveness. No? Doing it
Right.
at low cost, that's efficiency.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So
Right.
effectiveness first.
Of course.
Satisfy the customers first and then satisfy the investors. That's a sequence. That's a sequence. So they come together. I'm not saying you can only have effectiveness because many effective companies are not efficient. You know what
Mhm.
happens? They're very high sales, but their profits are down. They're not making money by
Yeah.
satisfying their customers.
Right.
They're so big but not making money. So what do you call these companies? Effective but not efficient. Hmm? Okay. What about efficient companies who are not selling? Okay. They have a very bad product, but they're so productive, so hardworking, but they cannot sell their product. So they're very efficient but not effective. What's the point? So you have to be both,
Mhm.
right? Be on the right track and then you run very fast. That's the model. Right? Be on the right track. That's one of my insight contained in the book, right? Focus on effectiveness, know your customers, and then try to do it as efficiently as possible. So you consume less resource trying to satisfy your
Right.
customers.
I still
You
remember
cannot.
the I
Yeah,
used the video to explain that. It wasn't about a product, but I showed them how a Formula One team can change all four tires in less than 2 seconds. I
exactly.
said, that's frightfully efficient, but do you know how much planning went into doing that?
Exactly. Years. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When a surgeon charge you 1,000,000 pesos for a 2-hour surgery, you're not paying for the 2-hour surgery. You're paying for the 20 years of
Mhm.
training how to make that 2-hour surgery. Yeah? See, this is what I'm saying. It's all about planning, right? It's all about execution, and you're right. That but Paul, back to teamwork. That's the kind of teamwork I'm talking about. Teamwork of the pit stop. Okay, call it pit
Right,
stop team to change tires, refuel, because that pit stop is part of racing time. Okay,
right,
you're not just efficient. It's not about efficiency only. It's about effectiveness because if you're so slow in pit stop, you will lose the race anyway.
Right. You will. Right.
Even with a fast driver, you will
Right.
lose the race.
Right. And
So
if you look at the
front
history of the
office,
pit
back
stops,
office should
yeah.
work together. Yeah.
If you look at the history of the pit stops for Formula One cars, it shows it because I was watching in the 70s and pit stops were done more because the car needed something or yeah, and they took their time compared to today when they realized that the pit stop was actually part of the strategy of winning. Then it became something that was boiled down to a
Becomes-
2-second tire change. You know?
it becomes a science itself. So the
Yeah.
Toyota Group is so famous for this. We call it setup time. They can set up machine in a minute instead of 8 hours. So they have
Right.
this agility, flexibility to change the product in a few seconds. So they can come up with high variety at low cost, at high speed.
Right.
That's the model now, right? Of competition. High variety, low cost, at high speed.
Okay.
That
Okay.
normally doesn't happen. Once you have variety, you become high cost and low speed.
Yes.
Yeah.
You slow
Yes.
down because of customized product,
Oh,
customization.
oh,
So we call it fast customization or mass customization. It's no longer mass production. Okay? It's mass customization.
Wow.
So these are the new paradigms in management. Okay? So we have to unlearn mass production. We call it economies of scale or things like that. Nobody believes in economies of scale anymore. Everybody wants smaller batch, smaller portion, right? But you have to do it cost efficiently. Okay? This is a challenge.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
How
It
can you
is.
mass customize at affordable prices?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You
Plus, you have
still
to
need
look at
buyers.
plus you have to look at the fact that a car has about 8,000 parts.
Exactly. How do you, Toyota can do that?
Yeah.
How do you customize this? Different model, but they can do
Right.
that at mass production prices. At mass
Right.
production. That's the
Right.
reality. How do you adapt that to other industries like apparel, okay? Or paints or building materials, right? Okay?
Yes.
Or not only the car industry. So this is the paradigm that if you do something customized, it need not be high price. I have that in my book. What you need is agility. It's like Formula One mindset, right? Good driver and good mechanics at the same time.
Right.
Okay. So if you just have speed but without agility, you will lose the race. You need both, right? You need speed and agility and flexibility. So what we learn is speed. Just work harder, work faster. But that's not gonna make you competitive. Okay. In the real world, you have to be agile. You should be able to change direction, do setups quickly, customize quickly at affordable prices. But this is how to compete in the new economy. It's
Yes.
not mass producing the biggest amount possible. Okay?
Right.
To reduce price, to reduce cost. No, you can reduce cost even at low volumes. Why should
So,
you wait for volume?
so
Yeah, go.
Rene, if you were to just maybe pick one or two key lessons with your book, what would they be? I know they're probably 10 or 20, okay, but maybe
I
pick
have
one
two
or two of your
dozens. I
favorites.
have two
Okay.
dozens in front of me. So that's hard to shortlist, right?
Okay.
I think the most important takeaway, and this is a big part of the book, is really focus on your customers, the voice of the customer. Everything starts there. Okay, your definition of effectiveness, efficiency, the way you cut costs. You focus on the customer. Make the don't sacrifice quality, don't sacrifice value, and keep the price affordable. Okay,
Mhm.
and do it quickly. Huh? In other words, speed, agility, right? Because that's what customers of the future or near future is gonna be. No? They're so impatient. They're
Right.
perfectionists, impatient. They always compare with other suppliers because they have the technology to do that. Okay, and you have to be quick. Okay, maybe you're the best product, but you're late. They'll buy the second best product,
Yes.
who is
Yes.
faster. So time becomes important, and maybe this is the second lesson. We cannot lose time. Time becomes valuable. Whoever can deliver faster, costs less, and gives better quality. So it's
Right.
about speed. all things being equal, huh? You know, a
Uh-uh.
lot of products are getting commoditized. Banking service,
Yes.
you know, cars, pawn
Mm.
shop, commoditized. But whoever is faster wins. Huh? But faster is not a mission vision. It's about process design. It's about efficiency design, resource allocation. You cannot gain speed by just working faster. No, you have to do things differently. So time becomes important and agility. Okay. Another key takeaway is agility, flexibility. So we have to build in flexibility into our system, robustness, right? In other words, we can adapt to changes in customers' demand. We can adapt to changes in the weather. Right
Right.
now, we're suffering from climate change. So a lot of our businesses are not agile. They cannot adapt to the new weather, right? So they close shop, right?
Mhm.
Huh? They're not weatherproof, so to speak. Okay,
Right.
so how do you make your or climate proof? So we cannot blame the climate. This climate will gonna change. So the business, you have to adapt. You call
Yeah.
it
Right.
agility, right? Okay. So these are the key lessons: customer focus, uh, uh, give value to timeliness and time, and build agility, robustness into your systems. Okay?
Okay.
Uh, and to connect to that, people are leaving, they're going abroad,
Yes.
employees resign, right? It's
Yes.
hard
Yes.
to find talent nowadays. So
Mhm.
labor shortage is like climate change. You cannot stop it, right?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Yes.
People will quit. And
Mm-mm.
then if your business is not robust, you slow down because of absences and
Mhm.
resignation. That's a
Yes.
very bad business design.
Yes.
How
Right.
can you slow down because of somebody's absent, somebody resigned? That's bad planning. Okay?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, people will resign. People will go to Saudi, they become OFW. How can you
Yeah.
say, well, I'm not ready for this? You should plan for that. This is part of agility, robustness.
Yes.
These are
Yes.
all in the book, right? On how
Right.
to build this
Uh-uh.
feature in your new model, rethinking your business model. Okay? Ready
Mm.
for the next crisis, so to speak, or crisis proof.
Uh-uh.
COVID or not, I'm not talking
Uh-uh.
about COVID. It can be a political
Uh-uh.
crisis. It doesn't have to be a health crisis. Yeah?
Uh-uh. Professor
Doesn't have
Rene, in your observation, no, in your estimation, what percentage of our businesses here have recovered or is still are still recovering? And I know a lot also who did not recover because they just closed shop. So what would be the percentage of those who have recovered?
Well, they have opened shop. I don't have enough data. The airlines have recovered because tourism is back, right?
Okay,
Hotels
okay,
are back. They have now reopened. You know, a lot of major hotels shut down during the COVID.
all
Now
right,
they're back in business.
okay,
But I think the small businesses have not recovered, right? Because they have to reinvent their products and
yeah,
services. It's hard
yes,
if you have a single product, that's it, right? But big
Right.
companies can actually offer. They have a more variety.
yeah,
They can offset a losing product with another winning product. But in one of my poll survey, Dina, if you have reached that portion of the
yeah,
book,
yeah,
I
yeah.
did ask a very interesting question, and I don't know the answer. That's why I asked it. No? And my question more or less is something like this: do you think that businesses are ready for the next crisis? Huh? You know what the answer was? Majority of the respondents, these are executive, says no, they're not ready.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Meaning we just
yeah.
wasted a crisis.
Right, right, right.
So
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the present. I worry about the future. The next crisis will be hit
Yes,
harder, huh? Because it
right.
never learned a lesson.
Uh-uh, uh-uh.
Never learned a lesson. And these
What
are
did
Right.
Churchill
admitted.
say? What did Churchill say? Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah.
Never, but it was wasted. It is wasted. It's being
Yeah,
wasted.
yeah. It did.
That's really more of my concern, right? We did
Yes,
not learn a lesson.
yes.
We keep
Uh-uh.
building up, assets. We keep increasing our fixed costs. Fixed
Mm-mm.
cost is really the biggest threat.
Ooh,
Not
yes.
only loans, huh? Huh?
Uh-uh.
Yes.
There are three weaknesses of a company that makes them vulnerable in any crisis. One is high fixed costs, right?
Okay.
High fixed costs. Right? And the other one is so many assets. This, of course, these are related, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they cannot pivot. They cannot pivot to a new product.
Mm-mm.
If the current product loses demand. So you have to learn how to pivot, learn your core competence. You can switch to another product in case that product is hit by the next crisis.
Mm.
Mm.
And sadly, companies never learn a lesson. They're still so focused on doing more of the same. Okay, comfort zone, right? Let's
Right.
do this. Okay, they become sitting duck by the
Yes,
next crisis.
indeed,
Yeah.
indeed, indeed. And I agree with you, by the way. And I noticed also, Professor Rene, even some of the big corporations are also not recovering yet. They're having,
Not yet, not yet. I think
not,
what's important is reconfigure, rethink
uh,
your business model
uh,
so that
uh,
maybe it's not recovery. You have to transform into something else.
okay,
You
okay.
cannot so sell the pre-pandemic product in the
Yes,
post-pandemic era. If that's
right.
what you're talking
Yes,
about.
yes. Indeed, indeed.
That's not recovery. That's not recovery. Okay?
Okay, okay.
A lot of this pre-pandemic product cannot be sold in the post-pandemic economy. Yeah?
Right.
So just drop them, change them. Right?
Right,
Many are
right.
switching to online. So make your products available online. Something like that. Right?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
learning so much from this, Professor Rene. On top of what I learned from reading already, a big portion of your book, but by the way, I jump from one. I don't like yung talagang thoroughly one chapter. I jump from one
You can
to
jump.
okay.
That's the purpose
Oo,
of the design. Right?
oo,
It's
oo.
less stress. You don't have
Oo. I like it that way. I like it. Okay. And
cherry pick. You can cherry pick what
I like
you
it. Now, Professor Rene, give us an idea, please, about your time, no, your schedule, because I know you really have separate what we call schedules, different things you're doing. So, what would be for you a good schedule for us so that more or less we know when would be our next, because this
Oh
will
yeah,
be a
yeah,
series with you,
yeah.
series.
Let's plan for the sequence of topics
Okay,
based on importance and urgency. We can
okay,
discuss this, huh?
okay,
And
okay.
then we can design a session around one particular theme. For example, one theme is could be about entrepreneurship. Hmm?
Okay.
Another theme can be about innovation. Another
Mm-hmm.
could be about technology. Just take a
Mm-hmm.
look at my table of contents. Each
Yes.
of those,
Yes.
a dozen or two, can be a session. Huh?
Okay.
Can be a
Okay.
session. And we can go deep dive
Yes.
on
Yes.
those topics, including best practices and worst practices, if you will.
Right.
Right?
I
Yeah.
appreciate that because Professor Rene, you're helping a lot of people also because honestly, even I tell you this because we encounter several types of organizations and uh, although I agree with you with one thing talaga surely the hardest hit are the smaller ones because they don't
Yeah.
have the means. You don't have the means, no? But I'm beginning to observe already even the big ones. But then these are the ones that were not managed well.
Correct,
The,
correct. That adds to your vulnerability.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you have a bad product and bad management, that's the
Oo.
worst combination, right?
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
Oo. So,
It's okay to have a bad product with good management. You can
yes,
recover.
so,
But combine bad product with bad management, then
indeed,
that's understandably not a position we like to take, right? So
indeed, oo.
it's okay to help the small business. I don't mind if they're small, right? Small
Mm.
is beautiful. They're more agile. They don't have big fixed costs.
Yes,
Have one point. They have advantages over the big ones. They have resiliency. They
yes,
don't have bureaucracy of several layers of vice president.
yes,
Uh, there are only one layer between rank and file and the president, so they can move faster. That's their
yes,
advantage. Okay?
right.
Talk
Oo.
about funds. Of course, you say they're not bankable. They don't have collateral. There's
Oo.
another way to solve that. It's also in my book. We call it leveraging, right? You
Yes,
do partnership,
yes,
okay, with others. You look at your model again. Maybe you can make it asset light, asset free. Okay,
yes.
so
Mm-mm.
you can have more OPEX than CAPEX, more
Mm-mm.
variable cost instead of fixed cost. This is how small companies can survive. Don't
Mm-mm.
copy the financial model of big companies like hiring full-time employees,
Mm-mm.
buying factories, buying.
Mm-mm.
That's a formula for disaster. Right? If you're a small company, you run out of cash,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
They
All
become
right. So,
vulnerable to the next crisis. So a
uh,
different model for SMEs to survive, to compete with
right.
the big company. We
Uh,
call that
uh,
resilient model. Okay,
all right.
so
Yes.
that's my advice
Uh,
for
it,
SME.
wow. This is already a good prep for our wrap up, no? And I thank you again, Professor Rene, because
Thank
of
you, Tolina.
honestly, I am just so feeling so fulfilled because not only are we getting you now to explain the book, but at the same time now we have something to look forward to, that in the next few months we can already have the different categories where we can focus on one particular subject. So,
Yes, yes,
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
so okay.
Excellent.
So yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much, Paul, for
Thank
being
you
with us
too.
And likewise.
with me, our co-host. And of course, no, we want to remind everybody that learning is a never-ending journey with limitless vistas. And to let everybody know that our next guest will be Carmi Pascual de Leon with her beautiful connections. And I believe Professor Rene will agree with me. If you don't have connections, difficult to do business. So that's what it's going to talk about, beautiful connections.